This is why I'm on Lexapro.
That's why I should get on Lexapro. I've been staving off, but my therapist brings it up every couple months.
I'm begging you to get on it.
It'd be so funny if I just showed up one day fully
happy for once.
Yeah, pretty much.
Welcome to Millennial, the home of pretend adulting and real talk. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Pamela.
So Laura is not here today. She was planning on being here. And then Pam and I got a text yesterday. It happened to her.
She has fallen.
She got the vid. She went to an urgent care. This was Memorial Day that it happened. And she went to an urgent care and then she tried to get Paxlovid. But of course, it being a federal holiday, the pharmacy was closed.
Bananas. I can't believe they don't have 24-hour pharmacies. I guess, like, if anybody's proud to be an American, it's Georgia. So
Yeah,
that makes sense.
They are closed. You need medicine right now? Is this urgent?
Tough
Sorry.
shit. Yeah.
Wait till the next day.
You can wait or die.
Laura sends her regards, but it's okay. We're going to try to wing this ourselves today. It's actually kind of a Pam and Andrew focused episode anyway.
Yeah, she picked a good week to get COVID.
She's like, you know what? I don't need to be here for this shit.
Yeah,
I know what it is.
Talk. She's too jealous of our freelancing lifestyle.
It's exactly what I was going to say. We're going to have a freelancer themed discussion today. Honestly, like, I was also thinking about this yesterday. Like, I don't even know what Laura was thinking getting COVID now. Like, it's not cool to get it anymore. It's just like, where have you been? Get with the times.
She's trying to bring it back.
Bring it
all
back.
All the trends are cyclical.
Hot COVID summer. So we'll get to this freelancer themed discussion today in a moment. But first, if you are new to the show, thanks for checking us out. And push that follow or subscribe button like you're hitting yes on an exciting new freelancer opportunity. And that way you will never miss an episode every Wednesday. And you can visit millennialshow.com for more about the show. Speaking about the show, quick update on what name we are going to give our listeners. We did put up a poll. It's on Patreon, but everybody can vote. There was a link posted on our Instagram story on Tuesday. Here's the thing. Avocados is winning handily right now, but we put a lot of names in that list, and I think what we're going to do is do a finalist poll, whittle it down to 3 or 4, and then do another poll, and then that will be the final decision. So whatever wins that smaller poll will win. One reason personally I want to do this is because one of our listeners over the weekend, Rebecca, suggested the listener name Pals, Pam, Andrew, Laura. And I think
cute.
That's so cute. Yeah.
That's
Pals.
really cute.
So I want to give that one a chance. And maybe like Laura and Pam can each like include an honorable mention in the final poll if one of their favorites isn't in there as well. So stay tuned. The work continues. Pam, one reason we wanted to have a focused discussion on the life of a freelancer is because I think we touched on this in a After Dark AMA, and we had a lot to say at the time, but we also thought we had so much more to say, and we thought this could be helpful for listeners. And you jokingly said Laura's jealous that we're freelancers, but she actually has expressed interest in kind of pivoting into our world at some point, I think.
Yeah,
right?
Which honestly is fascinating to me because there are downsides. I think everybody romanticizes the other side of things.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
You know, I'm sure that you've been in positions sometimes too where, you know, it's nice to have the flexibility to be able to even like pivot and dedicate weird hours to this show, right? But then Laura's over there sitting pretty at a corporate job where they, you know, help you out with 401ks and you can sign up for health insurance, and it's a fairly steady job. You don't have to worry about job security. So there are pros and cons, and we're going to get into all of that, I think, as we go through this discussion.
Definitely. Another example there is when you do get sick with COVID, your business can continue to operate without you because you're part of a big corporation. Here, when somebody's sick, you know, Chloe aside, there's 3 of us. We're losing 30% of the panel when somebody's gone. So yeah, we can bring in a guest, but it's just it's tough to even miss work when you're a freelancer because you are making the money come in, period. You have to work to make that money come in. We thought lots of listeners would want to hear what life is like as a freelancer, and we're happy to talk about it. But just to baseline, just in case anybody doesn't know, let's just give people a brief overview of what you and I both do as freelancers. So Pam, you first. What is your freelancer life like?
All right. Well, I started off, obviously, I've said this before on the show many times, as a freelance entertainment journalist. And I still categorize myself as that because that's always the long-term goal in some capacity or another. That being said, like a lot of creative people in the media, my industry took a big hit during COVID. And so since that happened, I've pivoted mostly towards copy editing and copywriting for like EPK stuff. So if anybody doesn't know what an EPK is, it's electronic press kits. So you help put that together and there's some copy involved there. And, copy editing is pretty self-explanatory, but that also includes fact checking on my part as well, checking sources, things like that. And that is a little bit more stable, I've found, at least for now. And then also even though it seems strange to say, technically Millennial as well as freelance work. So yeah, that's basically like my big three.
The EPK stuff is cool. I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, I guess we haven't talked about it, but yeah, like EPK, I think that was a pretty natural transition to move over for me because, I've worked with press kits and it's really easy to kind of just tackle the stories from the other side of things. So
yeah, for sure. You've had enough of that, the journalist side. It's time to work.
I still miss it.
Do you?
I mean, yeah. But here's the thing, though. For me, I think I would be more bothered by it if doing this show or working on podcast projects was kind of scratching that itch in a different way, because I still get to report on entertainment news. And I still get to do the feature stuff. It's just that we are talking about it in a panel setting and I'm not writing about it on my own. So that's kind of nice because it's more of a collaborative effort.
Do you prefer talking or writing?
Ooh.
If you're talking about, let's say, Taylor.
You know what? I think that I actually prefer talking at this point, because if I sit and I write about it, it's not that I can't do it, but I'll go through multiple drafts before I submit one that I think is worthy. But talking about it kind of, and especially if it's off the cuff for the most part, I feel like it really makes me realize that I don't need to sit there and agonize over every word placement, because the words do come out in the heat of the moment, I guess, and they sound just fine. I'm a little too hard on myself sometimes when I'm writing.
Okay. See, I think I'm the opposite. I think I actually prefer writing because you get to sit there and organize all your thoughts. Whereas with the podcast, at least our format.
Though?
Well, I mean, it is fun to podcast. Don't get me wrong, but I would prefer just writing everything and getting to listen to music while I do so.
I see.
Organizing my thoughts. It's way easier for me to get my thoughts out when I'm writing, because when I'm podcasting, my mind is just going a mile a minute, and you can edit it in post, but you can't edit it as cleanly as you can a written document.
I mean, to be fair, I just told you this recently. You do make me sound great. So I could sound like shit before the final edit. But yeah, in my head, usually if I'm getting going about something that I'm particularly passionate about or knowledgeable about, I'm just oh yeah, I'm cooking here and it's fine.
Right.
You kind of get on a roll with subjects that you're knowledgeable on, and you kind of know, okay, I don't need to worry about if my points are coming out, because I know this material at this point so well that I don't need to sit there and agonize over it. But on the other hand, there have definitely been some topics that we've covered where I'm doing, at least a couple hours worth of research, and I'm worried about whether I'm going to be able to contribute at all, but it always ends up fine in the end, because you kind of at some point have to leave the research and trust that you've absorbed enough knowledge to help other people understand. So
that's how I am with this show. When we have a lot of plans for the show, I'm when do I stop preparing for the episode?
Yeah.
You can never have enough preparation. It feels like there's always more you could read, It's oh, let's just record already, get this out of the way.
I will say that this is where my educational background comes in especially handy, because, I studied journalism and I've worked in various genres of news in my career. And there are always moments when, and I'm sure you remember this too from the Hypeable days, breaking news hits. Maybe you don't know a lot about something. You have about 15 minutes to figure out how to sound like you know what you're talking about if you want to get a story up quick, right?
Yeah.
Like the number of times I've had to like crash course myself on some obscure Marvel superhero that like most people don't know.
Yeah.
And then turn around a copy that makes it sound like I actually do know what I'm talking about is like, I can't even count the number of times that's happened on both my hands. So same thing, just different.
Looking at my freelancing life now, so setting these podcasts aside, my main freelancing bread and butter is editing podcasts for others. When I started getting more serious about freelancing in 2017, I originally was trying to consult more. And I really do like consulting because I sit down for an hour and I blab to somebody who needs to learn podcasting. And at the end, they say, oh my God, that was so helpful. And I was like, oh, cool. I was just sitting here and talking about my passion for an hour. I'm glad you found it helpful. And then they pay me. And then I never have to talk to them again. It was kind of nice. But the consulting, it wasn't consistent. It's like, sure, I might have a couple of consulting sessions come up over the course of a week or a few over the course of a month, but I couldn't depend on, that wasn't recurring revenue from specific clients again and again. So then I pretty quickly realized and pivoted into looking for podcast editing work because I knew, as most people know, podcasts are recurring weekly, every other week, monthly, whatever. So I thought that's going to be the best way forward. So I've primarily focused on that, but I've continued to take consulting work because, again, I do find it fun to sit there and talk to people about podcasting for an hour or launching their own Patreon. And then people might know that I do have this Patreon online course as well. That's not really so much freelancing. But anyway, audio and video podcast editing is my main freelancing hustle. And I love it. I still love editing as much as I ever have. I don't particularly love editing myself. I hate listening to myself after the fact, and you are your own worst critic, so you're second guessing yourself. I frequently re-record things that I hear on the show because I don't like how I said them.
Must be nice.
No, but I listen to what everybody says, and I'm like, you all make perfect sense. I'm sitting there like unhappy with what I said, but again, we are our own worst critic. I'm sure if you or anybody else was editing me, hopefully you'd be like, you don't need to re-record any of that. And I never feel that way about any of you guys. I truly never do.
It's funny you mentioned that because I don't think I've ever sat on any show with you and thought, what the hell is Andrew trying to say right now? So
that's amazing to hear you say that. See, this is another thing that sucks about freelancing. You never have somebody above you encouraging you, saying, hey, great job.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you work with clients and they express appreciation, but you don't have like that boss who's always overhead who should be telling you, hey, great job. Like, who's going to tell me great job on the show besides the listeners?
Yourself.
Yeah. my new bobblehead that I got from my friend here, he's going to encourage me. He should have made it a talking bobblehead.
I was going to say, he should have done that.
That's how I pressed the head. Good job. Well said.
I'll make a mental note too. Give you a little praise every now and then.
No, it's okay. I'll get it from my therapist. I'll get it from somewhere. So yeah, that's what I do. And like I said, I do enjoy editing, but not so much myself. But I really do still enjoy editing. It's always felt like a fun puzzle to me, sorting out issues, improving the sound. The tools have gotten a lot better in recent years, so I feel like I'm unstoppable in terms of what I can do for people. I'm always confident that I can take on a gig. Sarah's saying I do a great job working on her podcast. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that.
Aww.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you because obviously we all started as audio only podcasters, but the landscape has shifted over into video, and we've all noticed that and taken note of that. I'm sure listeners have as well. So how has pivoting to video editing been for you?
I'm actually really glad you asked that, because when the world of podcasting started trending more towards video, I was like, oh God, I do not want to edit video podcasts. It's a whole different beast.
It is.
You have to deal with video files. They're huge files. It's just a very different editing style. But actually, what I came to discover was that I actually kind of prefer editing video podcasts, because when a client comes to you with a video podcast, there's less of an expectation for it to be very heavily edited, because it's a lot more difficult to hide cuts because you're showing a video. If you're trying to rearrange like words and pacing and sentences, you can't, because it's all on screen and listeners are going to notice that type of thing. So I've actually found video editing a little easier than audio editing. And that's why I've come to enjoy it. I'm also lucky to have a really good Mac right now, and it can handle large video files and exporting in a pretty decent amount of time. So it doesn't feel like a burden to edit video. So let's talk about the upsides and the downsides of freelancing. Pam, you were getting at this at the top of this discussion. There is that flexible schedule, possibly. You are making your own hours and getting your work done when you decide to do it. You get to work from home in most cases, which is great, or wherever you want or can. I'm sure, by the way, some people have seen that New York Post story about this work group from a Chuck E. Cheese. Did you see that?
No, I didn't, but that sounds like your dream.
It feels creepy to say, but yes, I actually kind of would like to work at a Chuck E. Cheese just to see what it was like. The New York Post headline was, "We work remotely from Chuck E. Cheese. Our 9-to-5s should be fun too." In many cases, you're following your passion. I think that's definitely the case for Pam and I. And there's that rewarding feeling that comes with getting a new gig. That is something I still feel every time I get a new gig. It feels like I'm on the right track. Like, okay, somebody actually wants to work with me. This feels good.
Especially when it comes in the form of a referral. That's like almost all of my work does come from referrals. And so that makes me feel, that's the praise I get or like if I'm interviewing for something and then I hear, I heard about you from so-and-so. And it's like, oh, you did? Like, that's so nice. What did they say? Oh, that's really nice.
People are saying good things about me. That's cool.
I know.
What else would you add to this list? Positives.
I think you hit on a lot of the bigger ones. And I think the biggest one for me is being able to work from anywhere. I've definitely benefited from that in the past. So, like maybe you still have to work, but you can take off on vacation whenever you want. You don't have to worry about like waiting until the 9-to-5 is over, for example. It's a lot easier to be flexible, to shuffle things around sometimes as well.
That's true.
Like we talked about that before. Like we've done like even just for Millennial, we just did the coffee expert episode, dropped a couple weeks ago. We were able to do that because we both work from home. We were able to schedule that interview in earlier.
We recorded a little earlier today.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Laura's not here, waiting for her to clock out of her 9-to-5.
Yeah, but that is like the advantage, and it feels good to be able to do that, because I think that like, I'm like satisfied from a work perspective from everything that I'm doing, but like podcasting has always been a passion project. So anytime I'm able to just have the freedom to just move things around so that we can do things for the show that we're really excited about, that we're excited for listeners to experience, that feels like the ultimate reward.
Yeah, it does. Are you happy as a freelancer? It sounds like you are.
I think so. I kind of go back and forth, and I never really thought I was going to freelance. The goal was always to get a job at a news organization of some sort. But I think I've made peace with it overall at this point in my life. I am especially happy with it because, getting a job somewhere else that's not freelance would also, sometimes even for permalancing jobs, they would want me to give up doing the podcast, for example. And I'm very creatively fulfilled by being able to do this show. So yeah, right now, because like all my ducks are in a row, I'm happy, but it's kind of like a roller coaster. I'm sure you feel that way too. Some days are harder than other days.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm I am happy as a freelancer because if we look at the state of media, you mentioned you wanted a job at a publication. That's a nice thought, but also the media industry is just in disarray. There's so much change happening right now, and there's been a lot of change happening over the last 5 to 10 years with this alleged pivot to video, for example. And of course, now we're in this TikTok world where short form video is king. Like things are just, and now AI, of course, things are very much up in the air. And by being a freelancer, we are in control of our destiny. I mean, nobody can, the clients we work with can fire us, but if we have multiple clients, we're protecting ourselves. And I'll get into this a little more later on, but I'm always looking out for one more gig to pick up because you never know when one of these jobs is going to disappear. So that helps me sleep easy at night, knowing that it's not all going to fall apart overnight for me. It would be a very slow moving disaster. But that at least buys me time to right the ship if it does start to sink.
Do you know what my plan B is? In my head, I always tell myself this is always this is very apropos, and given our most recent episode, I just always think it's okay, Pam. Like you can go work at a craft coffee shop, and you can
Spencer, hire me.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, like I know it sounds silly, but because that's like a trade, it's almost like a trade profession because of, like the level that they train you at for craft coffee is like way different than like getting a job at Starbucks. No shade to people that work at Starbucks. Any essential work or retail work is, valid in its own way. But I always just think to myself, like, I could do this. And I've known a lot of people that have made, coffee a career in one way or the other. People that I've worked with at these smaller mom and pop shops and stuff like that. So I just like, that's always my backup plan. I guess similar to like how you've always said when you retire, you want to just like open a bar in Palm Springs or something like that. So.
Or be a sugar baby.
Yeah, well, that would be great. Yeah. Are we getting too old to be sugar babies? There's always going to be people older than us, right?
And there's always Botox. So we could figure it out.
I can invest in that. We can write that off on taxes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a business expense for sure. I just, as much as I love being a freelancer, I also love the idea of being a barista or a bartender or just working for somebody else in the corporate world because it's somebody else's job to make sure the business is running smoothly. It's a lot to constantly worry about your own business and make sure enough money is coming in and thinking about the future. It's very stressful. I just don't want to worry about the future. And I know even if you work for somebody else, you're obviously worrying about your own future, but you're not having to worry about the business too. Like if I'm working for Starbucks, I know Starbucks is good. They're going to be around for a while. It's not my, I don't have to worry about introducing new drinks and what's the best idea for the business so I can keep my employees around. Like,
you just show up, clock in, and do what they trained you to do.
And then you clock out and you don't worry about it again until you clock in.
Yeah, then you don't have to worry about it. Yeah.
This is why I'm on Lexapro.
That's why I should get on Lexapro.
Oh, you're not? Get on it.
I've been staving off, but my therapist brings it up every couple months. So
she's like, "Oh yeah, you need it. You
she's
fucking
like,
need it."
Sure?
I'm begging you to get on it.
It'd be so funny if I just showed up one day fully like up on Lexapro.
Happy for once?
I noticed a difference. Yeah, pretty much.
One of our listeners, Brock, just said they just started Lexapro 4 days ago. Congratulations. Welcome to the club.
Congratulations.
It gets better from here. All right. Well, we'll talk about the downsides of freelancing, but first we need to pay for our podcast. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Okay, so let's talk about the downsides of freelancing. The grass is always greener, y'all. I know it sounds like a good world and gig, and it is. It really is. I always tell people it's a blessing and a curse, as is just the work from home life. But some of the downsides of freelancing, I've touched on this a couple times today so far. There really is that constant fear of it all falling apart. And to counter this, I'm always looking for one more gig. It's fun. Like we said earlier, it's very rewarding to pick up a new gig and, like you said, Pam, to get a referral. That's a great feeling. But I'm never resting on my laurels. And I think that is one reason I've been successful in my professional life. I am always thinking about what else I could be doing to make some coin. I'm always thinking about the next gig because my goal is always to be making more with each new gig as well. So I'm slowly working my way up. But yeah, it's also fun to browse Upwork and see what gigs are out there.
Yeah.
And you never know what you're going to find.
So that's the toughest part too, because I think at this point, like part of the challenge of going freelance, especially at the beginning, is trying to figure out how much you're worth and how much your time is worth. You and I have been doing this for long enough that we kind of know what we're worth at the baseline, and we know when it's okay to, take a little hit from the compensation, depending on the opportunity, if it's a good opportunity or not. I know I've definitely lowered my rates if it's for a good opportunity as well. But yeah, I think that is definitely the trickiest part for sure. And that comes along with like gigs too. Like I've definitely been offered news writing gigs since things have been picking up, over the last couple years or so. And the reason that I don't take those is because the rates are just too low for where I'm at, Yeah. I feel like Mr. Wonderful Kevin from Shark Tank is like, I don't get out of bed for at least this much.
That is fucking hilarious. I was literally just thinking that. I was just going to say that. I have a certain rate that I don't get out of bed for because it's not worth my time.
Right.
That said, I probably do undercharge in some cases. And it's not because I want to give them a discount necessarily, but imposter syndrome is real. I want to give people a competitive rate. And sometimes you just don't know what other people are charging. And then there's other factors too, like let's say there's a Reddit thread with, I charge this, I charge that. But what type of work are they actually putting in to these edits if we're looking at what I do? I mean, I could charge a lot more than somebody else, and one potential client could see that as me just ripping them off, but I actually could be doing a lot more for them, whereas another potential person they want to hire is doing a lot less or just simply caring a lot less. So I think with how much I genuinely do care about the work that I do and what I'm doing for clients, I probably could be charging more, but it's largely a secret a lot of the time, like what people are charging. Again, imposter syndrome. I'm like, no way I'm worth this much for this. But you also have to remind yourself that people are hiring you because they need you or they need somebody like you. The work you do might feel easy to you, but it's not to other people. And it's taken, I'm at a place that's taken 19 years to reach with my skill set.
I will say too, one of the downsides to being in creative fields like we are is that these are the things that like normal everyday people feel like you should do for free for them. I'm sure that you've had friends and family ask you to do free gigs here and there. I definitely have. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like you feel bad saying no. Maybe you'll do the first one for free, but after that, it's like, hey, like you're eating away at my time here because I could go out and do this exact same thing and get paid for it. So we're going to have to come up with something here because this is just not working at the model that we're going at. But yeah, I think that adds to imposter syndrome. It definitely does for me. I'm not saying that like I wouldn't like to do projects for free for my friends, but I would prefer it if like I offered instead of them just assuming, family too,
right?
That I'll just do it for free.
Definitely.
Like even if I had something like outside that I needed help with in terms of like audio editing, I'd be like, hey, like I need help with this. I can pay you. I would like upfront just be like, I could pay you. How much do you want to fix this thing?
But then sometimes somebody might just say, "Oh, I'll do it for you for free."
Exactly.
I'm not going to charge you. I've definitely done that.
It's the courtesy,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that adds to the imposter syndrome for sure. At least it is for me.
Actually, this next one in our list, and Liza, who does some freelancing herself, was just bringing this up in our Discord. It can be hard to get clients to pay you. I have one client in particular I've been working with for like 2-3 years. They are chronically late with payments, and I always have to send them a reminder, and it's really frustrating, especially because they ask me for quick turnarounds, like 2 to 3 days, which I can be happy to do if my schedule allows. But you're asking me for quick turnarounds, and then you have the nerve to take a month to pay me, and I'm not talking about much money either. It's nothing at all. Like, there's currently a bill from them, $75. $75. It's a month late at this point. They forget. And it's insulting, especially when you ask me for a quick turnaround.
Mm-hmm. So how do you do that then? Do you like, when they ask you for like another quick turnaround, you just say, hey, I'm happy to do that for you, but we need to like settle our outstanding balances first? Yeah.
Okay. Or I just say, hey, friendly, because they always do eventually pay. It just takes a long ass time. So I'll usually just add in, hey, friendly reminder, I need this. Don't forget about this invoice, and I link them to it. I use an invoicing tool, which is my recommendation today, called Wave, waveapps.com, and I love it for invoices. Y'all, if you're freelancing, you need an invoicing tool, unless you're using some third-party service that collects payments for you, like Upwork. It's impossible to keep track of all your invoices otherwise, and Wave can also send the invoices via email. You can collect payments via credit card. The money can go directly into your bank account. It keeps track of your inflow and your outflow.
Most of the places that I work for it's like a steady basis, right? So they have days, it's like every 2 weeks you have to file your invoices on your own. And it's like, that's really nice because I don't ever have to really like chase them down. If anything, they're like, remember to send in your invoice so you'll get paid. And, but yeah, a lot of them use Expensify. I don't know if you've ever had to use that before, so that you can like log all the stuff that you are going to be supposed to be getting paid for. And then they just file that and you get paid through payroll and stuff like that. But yeah, there's definitely different tools. I never heard of that one, but like I said, I don't usually do like, I don't really do like one-off gigs or like I'm usually working more for like companies and not for other people that are running their own little side businesses. So
they're paying you on a recurring basis. Yeah.
It's like Permalance, but it's not Permalance, but it is.
Kind of like what was going on with Hypable, I guess, because with all of Hypable's writers, our agreement with you is X amount of articles per month, and you don't have to invoice us. We will just send you the money automatically.
Right. You get a flat rate.
Right. And it's something I was always proud of, because then I see people sharing their horror stories when it came to writing for other websites, and these sites were just way behind on paying people. And part of it probably was they simply didn't want that money to leave their bank account, so they would delay as long as possible. But using a service like Upwork or Fiverr can help you avoid those issues with payment, because you enter an agreement through Fiverr or Upwork with a client, and then when you log hours, it automatically charges that client via credit card. So I have 3 or 4 clients I actively work with on Upwork on a recurring basis. Now, Upwork does take a flat % cut from your payments. It actually used to be worse, but they switched to a flat rate. And so I do this 10% flat rate is preferable, but, and this is something that's on me, I do need to just bring these clients off of Upwork and work with them directly, because I'm losing 10% of my pay to Upwork for really I found these clients through Upwork, but I don't need to continue working with these clients through Upwork, especially if they trust me. I have a relationship going back like 4 or 5 years with 2 of the clients.
Oh, at that point, cut out the middleman.
The fuck am I doing? All right, I'm making notes for myself. Raise rates, leave Upwork.
Yeah.
Have better self-worth, Andrew. Oh, and get Pam on Alexa Pro.
Yeah, get Pam on Alexa. I was just going to say, I'll text you regularly. I'll be like, what's your rate? Double it. Go higher.
You matter.
Higher.
Star emojis.
I do that to my friends all the time. I have a friend she's an illustrator, and I'm always telling her, because she'll do commission stuff for like fan art. And it's always like, dude, like, you're so good. You're so good. And you're lowballing it so hard. Charge them more. And she'll sit there and be like, okay, what about like $5? I'm like, more. You keep going up, and I'll tell you when to stop, because like, you're worth it. And I think sometimes that's what people need to hear too, from someone else.
Yeah. Maybe we all need to start doing some daily affirmations into the mirror. You matter. You're worth it, my friends, as Lydia's gift just said in the Discord.
Aww.
Another downside, and I think people are pretty aware of this, 401ks and healthcare, they don't exist for you. You're going to figure that out yourself. When it comes to healthcare, I go through the open marketplace. Thanks, Obama. I spend $350 a month for CVS Aetna Healthcare. This is a new plan I actually just switched to this year. $0 deductible. Now, the out-of-pocket is high. It's $9,400 max. $15 CPC and therapist visits in network. That includes telehealth visits. I do love $15 therapy visits. That's compared to some services out there, that's really good. And I'm pleased with the reduced medicine costs too. For example, we've mentioned Lexapro a couple times today. Funnily enough, I was going to bring this part up anyway, but a 90-day supply of Lexapro cost me $9.50.
That's really good.
Yeah. So, Pam, I don't know if you want to get into your healthcare much, but I'm sure it stresses you out.
It does. Yeah. So California makes it pretty easy because you can shop the market through Covered California. Although I'm seeing your rates and I'm realizing you're actually getting a better deal than I am right now. So it'll make you feel better. So I might have to like reshop around. But yeah, I'm paying almost about the same. I'm paying $326 a month.
Okay. Does that include dental?
It does not include dental. So I'm paying an extra $50 for dental.
Okay.
And
I think I pay $20 for dental. You need to move to Nevada.
Yeah, clearly. And then my copay is higher too. It's a $30 copay. And I'm just looking right now. I just pulled it up on because I hardly have to go to the hospital, which is great. And then generic prescription drugs are $15 copay after deductible.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the CVS Aetna healthcare, I think, is new. I hadn't heard of it prior to this year, but I was shopping around because my rates were going up and I was like, this healthcare is fine, but I don't know, maybe I can do better. And you even get like a little discount at CVS once a year or something like that.
Oh, that's nice.
I can't remember, but yeah, so I'm pleasantly surprised. And again, the telehealth, like the therapy, it's a relief to have.
Yeah. I also see things like too, like my brother has, he has the option to put money into a flexible spending card, it just comes straight out of his paycheck, which is really nice. And it's like, oh, I wish I had an FSA card. That would be great, because I could just like funnel some money into there.
Well, speaking of money, 401ks, not a thing. Now, I have a Roth IRA and I strive to max that out. The government actually raised the annual cap this year. I believe it's like $7,200 now or $7K. So I'm on track to max that out this year. I am putting money into a particular index fund in the Roth IRA, and that does give me peace at night. You read different stats about where you should be in your overall savings. I think I'm on the right track.
I honestly, yeah, because it's first of all, it's always going to fluctuate. And second of all, it's never going to be enough, and so I try and do my best or a little bit above my best. But yeah, I think that like, you're right. Just being able to afford healthcare, especially in America, that's the big one for me. That gives me peace of mind. Like, I think I'm doing pretty well with my Roth IRA. There have definitely been years where I have not maxed it, and I probably could have if I had figured out where else to like cut funds from other things. But yeah. Sometimes you just have to but I also have like a savings account that I just automatically transfer money to and stuff like that. So
okay, like a high yield savings or
high yield savings.
I left the high yield savings account. I know we talked about those. I guess it was last year, and I was very excited about it, because there were some really nice offers, but I decided to just start putting all my money, well, not all my money, but putting money into the Roth IRA, focusing on that, because ultimately that's probably going to give you a greater return over the long
but
run.
my whole thing is like the Roth IRA, I'm not going to touch it, right? And the high yield savings is there in case of an emergency. And so that's kind of how I see it. I like having a safety net, or being privileged enough to have any kind of a safety net. That makes me sleep easier at night.
Yes.
So
I also have money in the markets outside of the Roth, and that's my safety net. That's
the stock market.
In the stock market, yeah.
See, the stock market kind of stresses me out a little bit, as we've discussed. So
Yeah.
like in that way, I think I'm very traditional in that it's like, okay, I have, the retirement account, and I have the, and then I have the high yield savings.
But as long as you invest in index funds, it's pretty safe. I mean, if you look at their historical,
I need to get over my fear.
Yeah, if you look at their historical performance and it averages a 10% return every year, okay, that's pretty good. Over 20 years, 10% annual return, that sounds good to me. I don't know, call this a fake adulting moment, but I'm pretty happy with this instead of doing the savings account. Even though those are great, that savings accounts are, guaranteed at the time. It's going to yield that certain amount at the end of every month. So that's great. And like you said, you can pull it out at any time. Pam and I will continue this discussion with more negative elements to watch out for, but first we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Any other positives you want to call out before we move on to this next question?
You mean negatives?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, negative. I'm just so excited about my index funds right now. I see it as a positive.
Andrew's getting too excited. So I think that like the other thing too is figuring out a good work-life balance. That's the big one. I've definitely not been the best at doing that in the past. And it's led to some nervous breakdowns, which is probably also why I'm still in therapy. But yeah, I just think that like, yes, there's a lot of flexibility, but also figuring out when to say yes and when to say no is a big one too, in an effort to just make sure that you're not like overworking yourself either.
Yeah. Setting hard hours for yourself is going to be really beneficial so you don't overwork yourself. And the tricky part is setting an amount of hours that's actually going to generate you enough revenue too. And speaking of hours, I think for anybody who's trying to transition from a full-time job to freelancing needs to know that there is, I think, going to be a really ugly period where you are basically working 2 full-time jobs, or it feels that way, because you need to transition from that old full-time job to the new one. And you're not going to have freelancing success overnight. It's going to take some amount of time. And, Laura, even Micah and Eric over at MuggleCast 2, they are very interested in going freelance or getting more involved in the freelance world. And to be honest, I don't know if they know what they're in for, because there is that ugly period.
That's the whole thing. Like, I've heard both of them talk about that. And I think to myself, like, why?
Why what?
Because why do you want to do that? Like, yes and no. It's yes and no. But I guess I just think that like the freelance was the path that chose me. I did not necessarily choose freelance. So I'm always really like perplexed by people that want to do that. But then also I do think that like, you're right. A lot of people don't see the ugly parts of getting started, and also of making sure that you reach a point where you feel financially stable in some way. And in a lot of ways, like I never really feel financially stable, because to the point you were saying about like how easy it is for the rug to get pulled out from under you. I've been working for, like, there was a couple of years there where I was steadily working for a news outlet, and then all of a sudden they were like, but we're shutting down in a month.
Yep.
It's all going away.
Yeah. And you mentioned having some breakdowns. This is the reason why I got on Lexapro back in 2016, I think it was. I was working way too much on Hypable in particular. It felt like I was always working, and I had very bad, real panic attacks for the first time in my life. So I really, after that, needed to get my work-life balance under control. I mean, again, if we look at Laura, Micah, Eric right now, I don't envy their position right now, because they work 1 or 2 podcasts and have a full-time job. That is a lot.
That's tough. It is a lot. Yeah.
And if they want to step more into the world of freelancing, I fully support it and will help them out however I can.
Oh, of course.
y'all are gonna be on Lexapro
Yeah.
if you aren't already.
my whole thing is like, I would never sit here and tell everybody it's great, it's sunshines and rainbows all the time, and I don't think you would either, you know.
No.
So you kind of have to, and that's why you have to toe the line, because you're like, well, I'm friends with these people, I don't want to discourage them from their dreams, but then you also have to think like, okay, because I love you, like, what realistically, what is it that you're thinking of doing that's freelance?
Yeah.
How viable is this in the long term? Have you looked to see what opportunities there are? How competitive is the market? How much could you feasibly make? How many hours could you feasibly log? There's all this stuff,
Yeah.
you know, that you want to make sure that they're just prepared for. And it comes out of a place of love, but sometimes I worry that it's like that I'm discouraging people, because I've also had to have frank conversations with people about this too.
Well, and you mentioned how much do you want to make or do you need to make? I think another part of transitioning to freelance life is, I certainly hope that anybody who becomes a freelancer makes tons of money, you know, let's say 6 figures, and very happy with their income and are living comfortably. But I think people should primarily focus on accepting that you might not make as much than you were with your day job. And certainly after healthcare, you might not make as much either. But I feel much happier than I think I would if I were in a traditional corporate job. So yes, I probably make less than some of my friends who work a traditional 9-to-5 and or corporate job, but I feel richer in not having one boss above me who can fire me any moment, tell me what to do all day, every day. You know, I take vacations when I want to. I work the hours that I want. I work from home. You know what I mean? Like, that is much more worth it to me than making more money and working in corporate America.
Totally understandable. Yeah. And I think the last thing I would say too is that it can get lonely, which is something that we touched on a little bit.
It's lonely at the top.
Yeah. But like, I miss like being in a newsroom in a weird way, you know, like collaborating with people. I think that we get a little bit of that because we have our weekly standing meetings, but it's, you know, day to day, if you're working on something, you can't go pop over and like visit your friend at another cubicle to be like, what are you working on? You want to go get lunch? Like, you know,
I had to join an app to make friends. Like, that's how lonely it is out here in the freelancing world. But you're right. And sometimes I feel out of place saying this. I feel like it's not my business to tell people this, but because I have no room to talk. I haven't worked in a traditional office before. But as people who yearn some social connection, at least from time to time, I believe that the best working situation for corporate America is that hybrid setting where you get to save time not commuting every day of the week. You get the comforts of working from home. A lot of people say you get a lot more done working from home. I love all of that for everybody. But you don't realize what you're missing by not going into an office. Yeah.
You don't, I mean, I get it. Like, you're never going to like everybody you work with usually, but it is like, I don't think it takes a few years for it to settle in. And then you realize it's like, I mean, honestly, if I wasn't doing this show, probably I would go like the whole week without actually talking to another person.
Yeah. Me too. And that's why, like, you know, we'll go to coffee shops to work just to simply be around other people, or the library in your case.
Yeah. You make up stories for the people that you see regularly. Like, there are people that you see go in, you know, I'm sure it's the same with the coffee shops too. There are people that come day to day and, you know, then you become part of that community in a weird sort of way.
What's the like most unique place you've ever worked from remotely? Just like even for a day.
Trying to think. That's a good question.
I have one. I have two, actually.
Okay.
I told everybody I was spending way too much time working on the Hypable. I felt responsible for the news coverage all day, every day. I used to bring my laptop everywhere. I worked from Disney World once. I brought my laptop into Disney World.
I've worked from Disneyland before too. Yeah.
I'm ashamed to admit it. But like, that's just where you're at some point in your career. But also, I brought my laptop to the freaking Getty in Los Angeles, this stunning museum.
That actually sounds like lovely. I only say that because when I was still in college, I was taking this humanities class. And one of the things we had to do was get a season pass to the Legion of Honor, which is a fine arts museum out here in San Francisco. And sometimes I would just go in there, like, because I had the student pass, and I would just like take my journal and I'd like write, or I'd like bring my laptop and I just like sit in a nice room and I do work from there because it's quiet and it's beautiful.
That does sound nice. But I was there with my brother. Like, I was there.
You said,
in
Ryan,
tourist
go
mode.
and check everything
go
out.
stare
I'll be
at
over
fine
here
art.
when you're done.
Go stare at fine art in the ocean view. I'll be staring at my freaking laptop screen writing about Twilight. It's unhealthy. It's like, I should do something like that. Like, you're going there to work and be around people and culture, and that's cool. But I should have been like in tourist mode, entertaining my brother, but not working while he's visiting.
I've worked from like the freaking like bus stops too. You're just like one hand typing and like holding your computer with the other hand, and out on the street at like Comic-Con, just like anywhere you can find a seat, basically.
Yeah. Lydia said she's worked from IHOP. That's a good one. I would do that. Mm-hmm. Brock said the Library of Congress. They'll give you a library.
That sounds like a treat.
And you can work on whatever and feel like you're a national treasure. I wrote a paper there in college. That's cool.
Okay, that's a new goal for me.
Yeah, maybe that should be a goal for me for the next year. Like, try to work for more. The other tricky part, though, is like, you can't trust the environment you're going to be entering. What if the Wi-Fi is bad? What if it's too loud? What if you can't find a comfortable seat? Like, you get in, you start picking particular places that you return to time and time again because you know you can trust them. I have a particular Panera where I know I'll be able to work comfortably and for a while.
In contrast, I don't go to the Panera near me anymore to work because I swear to God, they've been slowing the Wi-Fi down. So I've just been going to the library. The library always has free high-speed internet.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so is it fair to say that we're going to be freelancing and doing what we're doing for the foreseeable future? I think so.
Unless a really good offer comes from like a dream place for me, I'll be here.
Yeah, I think I would drop what I do for a dream job, but those concerns would give me great pause, some of which I brought up before. Like, what if I get hired for this amazing role? Let's say I love like Vox Media. What if I get hired as a podcast editor for all their shows there, something like that? That would be so cool. But I could get fired within a year. That shit's not guaranteed.
That's true. Yeah. So that's my whole thing. Like, I have turned down great opportunities before because they don't want to commit. You know, a lot of these
Permalance.
A lot of these media companies, they're like, we'll bring you on. Technically, you're freelance, but you still get benefits. But like, you know, we reevaluate your contract every 3 months, and you have to quit everything else you're doing. It's like, no, there's no security there. You're telling me that like most likely you'll keep me at least a year. But you're not telling me that you will keep me at least a year, and you want me to drop everything else. But what if you drop me in 3 months?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, moving on to some questions from listeners. Liza said, what do you wish you knew at the beginning of your freelancing careers? I would say that, now this is just me speaking. It might be different for other people, but it never gets easier. As I've brought up today, you never start worrying less about your future. I still worry about my future. And I've made this work for 15, 20 years now, if you include everything that I've done online. But can I make this work for another 30, 40 years? That brings me a lot of stress. And I guess that comes with any job. But when you're working for yourself, it's like, can I continue making magic for another 30, 40 years? Or can I just hit the lottery already or get hired as a full-time sugar baby? I don't know.
Yeah.
What would you tell yourself at the beginning?
That's a good one. I think I would also probably, I would really tell myself to like figure out my rates in advance. I had to learn all of that off the cuff. And I got really lucky that I had a really good editor the first time around. And I also got really lucky because that job came as a referral from another outlet that I had been working at. And it came from somebody that I knew was like looking out for me. And they set me up with a good person. And that's really the only reason I had a good barometer for how to set my own rates when I was going off after working for them. So, yeah, that would be the big one for sure.
Yeah. Roshni had a couple questions, two of which I think we've already addressed. So I'll just address this top one. How do you show people you are capable of doing the job they want? Is it too simple to just say, offer really good samples? Like,
I mean, at this point in our careers, that's pretty much what it is, right? It's samples and reputation. Because I'm sure like you do too. You have a list of references. I put you on my reference list. I don't know if they've ever called you before. I think you put me on a reference list recently, now that I'm thinking about it. But they never called me.
I'll answer this question a little differently. Truly try to stand out in like your application by conveying that you will care about their job. Because I think what happens on places like Upwork and Fiverr is that somebody will post a job and then they get like 100, let's say, or 50 applications. And people are just sort of like copying and pasting the same cover letter because everybody's hustling. Everybody's trying to find their next gig and they don't have time to write these custom cover letters for every single client. But try to stand out somehow in your cover letter and say to them, oh, I checked out your show already. I think it sounds great, but here are changes I would make. Of course, I'm speaking from the example of an editor, but here are the changes I would make. Here are the improvements I would make. And maybe ask a personal question or two about their business so it looks like you care. One of my clients who I've been working with for like 4 years now, she loves telling people, because I edit her podcast and it's kind of a business-oriented podcast, so she likes to tell this story to people she's interviewing. She says, I stood out to her because I was excited to see the work that they did in their business. She's an Amazon retailer. And I said to her in the initial email or cover letter, I was like, what is your business on Amazon? I think that's really cool. I'm a nerd. I want to know what you sell on Amazon. I've never spoken to somebody who sells products on Amazon. So she really appreciated that. So just stand out in a unique way when you're reaching out to clients. And then, of course, show them your best samples as well.
No, I think that's a good point. That doesn't really apply to what I do, but I think, yeah, if I was going in for a more creative role, I would also lead with, hey, like, this is my favorite thing that you do. But in my opinion, like, I think that you could up the ante by doing X, Y, Z.
Jenna had a few questions. Is it stressful not having a consistent paycheck or other perks like retirement or healthcare? And if so, how do you deal with that? So we already talked about retirement matches and healthcare. In terms of a consistent paycheck, I have a bank account dedicated to my podcast editing and consulting. I do take a certain amount out once a month, and that goes into another bank account, and that's where my paycheck comes from. I always have a little bit saved in the podcast editing bank account so that there's a cushion there. So if I don't get the same amount of income in March as I did February, it's okay because I do still have that cushion. So I've saved up enough in that bank account where things can fluctuate month to month, and I'm still pulling out the same amount month to month. Now, over time, this could slowly fall apart, but this is why I'm always looking for another gig to ensure I am able to pull out the same amount month to month and still keep that cushion there. So that's how I have actually managed to keep a consistent paycheck. But again, this is something that might take you time. You might not be able to build up that cushion for a couple years even. And one day you just make the math work and then you are feeling comfortable.
Yeah, that's a good strategy. I think that I'm really lucky in that the contracts that I have are consistent And so
Yeah.
I know that there's consistency in whatever they're going to be paying me. And so if it starts to feel a little tight financially, then I'll go seek out some other like one-off work, for example, to pad it out. Or I'll start
Yeah.
looking for other similar contracts and stuff like that. But I say that recognizing that I've been so lucky that that's worked out for me over the course of almost my entire freelancing career.
Yeah, this really is the secret for us too, isn't it? That we do have consistent work. I mentioned I quickly pivoted to podcast editing because that is consistent work as well. Most people have weekly podcasts. On the flip side, these podcasts, a lot of them are homegrown or independent, so they could shut down at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
So Jenna did ask a bunch of questions I do think we've addressed today, but the only other one she asked, and I don't know if we've addressed it directly, maybe we have, how do you avoid burnout? I think it helps to be passionate about what you do.
Yeah, passion helps, but only so much. I think really setting hours that you can feasibly keep and not working over that unless you absolutely have to is key. So figuring out how to balance, especially for us, since, I mean, I can take my work anywhere. I guess the same can be said for most freelancers, but because we specifically work in media, it's just so easy to just take your work on the go. I could like edit something in line at a supermarket, for example. So it's like, for me, it's just like learning how to let go in those times when like I know I don't like absolutely need to be in front of a screen. And that has really helped me.
Yeah. Having a separate space where you do your work is really helpful as well. In Chicago, my office was basically a nook in the living room, and it was a great space to work from. Lots of natural light, surrounded by windows. I loved that spot, but it wasn't separate from my living room, really. So it was almost like I was always in my office. Here, it's nice to have my own separate office where I can close the door and put the office away for the weekend or for the night. Having that separate space really makes a big difference when it comes to clearing your head. So I think that probably does it for now. Pam, would you say?
I think so. Hopefully this helps people listening if they're curious about getting into freelancing or just curious about what we do for whatever reason.
I'm surprised, and I'm also not surprised that we were able to talk about this, just you and I, for an hour.
Yeah, we should have known.
Coming up in After Dark today, speaking of money, we wanted to continue our Friends series, and we're going to talk about lending friends money. One of my friendships recently went on ice because I lent somebody, a good friend of mine, money, and he has been taking his sweet time paying me back to the point where it got very, very frustrating. And I will detail that in After Dark. But then we'll also talk about, when to lend friends money, when is and isn't the right time to do so. And then we're going to talk about lower stakes instances as well. Like, how do we balance covering each other's bills from time to time, like at a coffee shop, or like what are the signals there to do or not do that? So we'll talk about stuff like that in After Dark today.
After Dark is part of Mega Millennial, which you can get every week when you're a patron or Apple Podcast subscriber. Plus, it's ad-free. Visit patreon.com/millennial to pledge today. Spotify users will find a banner at the top of our show page, or Apple Podcast users can tap into the show and subscribe.
Over on our Patreon, we have other Patreon benefits like live stream access. Shout out to everybody who's in the live stream tonight, like Brock and Riley and Liza and Jenna and Lydia. And we also have our monthly Zoom hangouts, which are always a lot of fun. We send out a free physical gift every year and lots more. So check it all out. It's easy to get started, whether you're subscribing via Apple Podcasts or Patreon. We do offer a 7-day free trial and annual subscription discounts. And one last way to financially support us is by going to mugglemillennial.etsy.com, and you can purchase Millennial 2020 on Fire t-shirts or the Millennial Adulting Planner. There's not many adulting planners left, y'all. I think there's only like 5 or 6 left. So get it while you can. Yeah. Somebody ordered 2 last week. I was like, that's going to be a very organized person for a couple years.
Yeah.
Good for you.
I was going to say, you should think about getting a backup if you really like yours, because they're not dated, so you can use them at any time.
Exactly. Time for some recommendations, and I did issue my recommendation earlier, but just to remind everybody, it's Wave Invoicing, waveapps.com. It's an easy-to-use system to draw professional invoices, and like I said, you can collect payment right through Wave. They have a starter plan that is free to use, besides a little credit card fee when you collect payments through Wave, but you might want to look at their $16 a month plan because it does have some nice additional features. And I think I've been grandfathered into those additional features because I don't pay a monthly fee for Wave, yet I get some of the features that the $16 a month plan has. I've been using Wave for a good 4 or 5 years at this point. So yeah, check out Wave at waveapps.com.
And I wanted to recommend the Whole Foods coffee bar if you're having a hankering for coffee and you don't want to give a ridiculous amount of money to Starbucks, but you're near a Whole Foods. I know that sounds really funny because Whole Foods is very expensive, but turns out the coffee bar inside Whole Foods might be the only place you can actually get a good deal. I got a 24-ounce iced Americano for $3.50, and it was good coffee too. And
wow.
They have oat milk at the bar. So it's free oat milk if you need a splash of oat milk in your coffee. I was pleasantly surprised. And yeah, so
okay,
fantastic deal if you just want basic coffee. I think I didn't look too closely at their menu, but they did have cold brew for $4.50, which again is pretty good considering the prices of cold brew at other places. But yeah, the iced Americano, 10 out of 10. Can recommend. And as a bonus, you can add as much oat milk as you want in there because it's just out at the bar for free.
That's important to me. Very cool. Listeners, make sure you're following the show in your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. And we would love a review in Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you leave us a review on Apple, we might read it on air.
To stay in touch with us, email millennialshow@gmail.com or visit millennialshow.com. While there, you'll also find our social media links, and Spotify users can also leave feedback directly within the episode.
All right, Pam, we did it. We did a 2-person show.
We did. It's a miracle.
Wait, did somebody... Oh, look at this. Brock, who's listening live, just ordered 1 or 2 Millennial planners.
Oh, wow. My, thanks, Brock.
He ordered 2. Wow, you got it in just in time, Brock, so you could get this shout out. I'll put those in the mail tomorrow.
You should leave a little... give him some extra stickers or something.
Extra stickers to Brock for ordering while we were plugging it live, plugging the planners live on air.
We're better than QVC here.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks for your support. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Pamela.
After Dark starts in a moment for patrons and Apple Podcast subscribers. Bye, everyone.
Bye.